devices, on the back table, you're welcome to use. We will be sure to speak into the microphones tonight. Also, there's a men's room and a women's room if you exit the door immediately to your right. And then in the kitchenette over here, I have some water, some more coffee, or some coffee. I'll make some more coffee, in just a few moments, and then there's some donuts as well. So please help yourself. Also on the back table, there is one handout, or City Engineer Hopper, did you print some other supplemental material?
There's two handouts.
Two handouts, okay. So please take a look at please grab some of the handouts that are on the back table. They will be referenced during tonight's presentation. I also placed some of my business cards on the back table that have my personal cell phone and email address on those. And actually, my profile, I don't think I introduced myself. I think most of, oh, I did? Okay, all right. Well, if you didn't know me, I'm Brian Morrow, Mayor of the City of Saline, and delighted to serve in this capacity for the past 11 years. So, Mrs. Hester, do we have enough flyers on the back table for everybody?
I was just going to print more. I'm printing more right now.
You will get more. Yeah. And we would welcome you to take an extra copy or two to a neighbor, a friend, a colleague who might be interested in any of the material.
These are gone here.
Okay, the one page. Thank you.
That's what I'm printing out.
Very good. We will print some more. So the formal presentation will be led by the city manager, city engineer, and DPW director. Before each of them provide remarks, I'll allow them to introduce themselves and maybe give a little bit of background in terms of your experience before you came here. I'm 38, but I feel like the old one in the organization because the city manager came here at the end of 2020. Larry, you're 2021. Natasha, you're end of 2021? December 2021? Very good. So relatively new in an organization like this that has a strong track record history of retaining talent. But we're delighted to have each of them with us. Also to my right is Councilmember Jack Seal. At the conclusion of the presentation, we'll open it up for questions. We'll address whatever questions, concerns you have, reference city infrastructure. If there's time, we will take questions on other topics, but I do want you to be aware that my office will host another coffee hour, which will be much more broad in focus, likely in mid to early November. And there'll be a press release, and we'll be sure to share some information on social media as well. So with that, I'm going to turn over to staff. City Manager O'Toole, are you kicking it off, or would you like the city engineer or DPW director to?
Actually, I'll take it. I'm Larry Searles. I'm the Public Works Director. Tasha Humphris, city engineer next to me, and Colleen, being city manager / IT department, is in the back. The mayor invited us out to talk about infrastructure, and we're gonna lead into a lot of what you're gonna keep hearing: asset management, where holistically we try and manage all of the city's infrastructure in a stretch and maximize your dollar strategy. We can go to the first slide. Who's in control? Oh. So instead of fixing a road or fixing a pipe or fixing a water tower or these individual assets, what we're looking at is holistically managing all of the assets. We want to have our inventory done on what we have, what its life cycle is, where it's at in the life cycle, and how to best improve it or reinvest in it. And that includes road, water, storm, street lights, stop lights, sidewalks. The easiest way to think of asset management for especially a road is if you think about your roof. If you once your house is built, you have your roof on, and you never touch it again until the water is dripping on your head, it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you monitor the roof and you check and make sure that it's watertight, and you do the applications that you would typically see with a roofing overlay, a tear off and resheet, you save a lot of money over the lifetime of the structure.
Director Schultz, can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, sir.
Because I just picked up this one sheet from the printer. Who did not receive or get when they came in an infrastructure asset list?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Your hands up. If you didn't get one, or if you'd like one. Director Schultz, my apologies.
Oh, no problem. So this slide that we just switched to, it almost looks like a roof, but it's a road. We can wait until the road completely fails and spend a whole ton of money in it, or we can, over the time, program in these fixes such as crack sealing, seal coating, or chip sealing, mill and fill, mill and overlay, and then ultimately, we're keeping the road bed solid like you would keep the wood on your roof solid, because that's where the big expense comes from. But we apply this to water and sewer pipes as well. Is Colleen back yet? This slide just gives you a visual of the pacer. It stands for something, but that's how the national standard of rating roads are. Those slides show what a good road is, fair road, and a poor road. You can't fix worse first than asset management, but not knowing what you have is a handicap. We've gotten cores throughout the city. These cores show what is the road, how much is asphalt, how much is aggregate, what kind of sand or silt or clay is beneath, and that helps us pick the right fix or reinvestment back into the road. We also have the entire network rated, and then we're keeping all that in our GIS, and we'll touch on that more when we switch over to Tasha's portion of asset management. This road right here, Old Creek, 2002, it became a road. 2018, it was repaved. 2019, we found out we were putting in a large sewer upgrade. 2023, we removed that section of the road and put the sewer in. Asset management, proper asset management with proper records will keep us, and it wasn't the whole entire road, but it will keep us maximizing your dollars better. A lot of feedback has been coming about the Maple Road project. It is a massive sewer job, very deep. The road is just the lid. I've heard a lot of residents asking why they're not working. The majority of this work is actually taking place in a hole. Actually, today they finished lining the water main under Michigan Ave. But when they're putting that sewer in, they're sending out these rods, hooking onto this large diameter pipe, and pulling it back. So it goes long and slow. Please check our website for updates. You're going to get to the website.
Yes, so that's a good lead into, and when we started this whole presentation, I have been here now almost 2 years, but what I'm realizing in the municipal world, that's a very short amount of time, especially with these large assets that we own. And that's what this slide talks about, and the handouts in the back are just the sheer amount of assets we, the city of Saline, own and maintain. And this is just by category, and this doesn't even include smaller assets like trees. These are the big ones. These are all of the things that we need to work together to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck for our dollars that are going into all the assets that we own. So what we have done, new management is very proud of, and we launched just this last spring, is ClearGov, and it's a because part of asset management, a big part of it is making sure all of the departments are working together. And so finance needs to work with DPW, needs to work with engineering, needs to work with community development, and like the superintendent of water and wastewater. ClearGov is a landing spot, a database where our working capital projects are tracked. And that second bullet has to do with it's becoming a tool for us as staff to communicate and make these capital projects more effectively work its way through the bureaucracy that is government, and getting funding for the projects and getting projects lined up and ready to go. Oops, wrong button. So like I said, we just launched this, and we've had a couple of hiccups in launching new software always, but the idea is, and the idea behind this slide is that we, as a city of Saline, not having that many residents, we have a massive amount of capital need. That's $134 million you see on that slide. Of course, that's because we're doing an $80 million wastewater treatment plant project, but beyond that wastewater treatment plant project, we have needs in all of our, what I consider essential infrastructure systems. Our water, our sanitary, and our storm systems have massive needs, tens of millions of dollars in some of those systems beyond just what you're hearing about at the wastewater treatment plant. So because we know we have these needs, we want to use all of our money to the most effective way possible. So that's what we are currently doing, and what you're seeing as far as the projects that we talked a little bit about Maple. This summer we did Clark. These were all projects that were in the hopper, like when we kind of started, if you will. But East Belt was a very important project to move forward. Maple Road was very important. That is an essential project that was on our main East Belt trunk line for sanitary sewer. So, and that I believe is the next. So the next part, we're just going to touch on current projects and then open it up for hopefully some open dialogue and discussion. So I think we've talked a lot about this project. We are putting weekly updates in ClearGov. Please do visit. This project actually is on schedule and going great. I know, and I know that's not what the general public thinks, but we think this project is going really well. The contractor is on schedule. Its substantial completion is the end of November, early December, and like I said, going well. And we're done with the deep sanitary work too on this project, which is nice. The deep sanitary work went to Clark. So now they're putting in water main. I think residents north of Clark are going to notice a lot more disruptions because we will have to switch over everybody's water service at some point. But that water main moves a lot faster. It's only 8 feet. It's between 5 and 8 feet deep, as opposed to the sanitary sewer that was literally 20, plus feet deep, which is just slow moving when you're in that deep of excavations. This is an up-and-coming project, and this is the Saline River Valley Trail. You may have heard it before as the Saline River Walk Trail, but we've renamed it specific. And you can see now it follows the the woods, the ridge line of the Saline River Valley Trail, and there's a reason for that, and it's because our sanitary sewer follows that very line. So we have a lot of existing sanitary sewer that is only accessible to us when Mill Pond's not wet. You can imagine driving, you can only drive on, if you visit Mill Pond any time of the year, or multiple times during the year, it's sometimes dry, and you can, like Celtic Festival historically, we could all go out there and walk around. But you go there after a big rain in April, you aren't driving trucks out there, much less Vector trucks that need to go out there. So this path is now being enhanced to be to provide truck access to our sanitary sewer is following the sanitary sewer line, which is why it's following the ridge line. So this is the rough outline of what the path will look like. This is something that we have a lot of funding for, which is exciting. And so we're looking forward, this project will likely break ground, not in 24, but like maybe end of 24, but 25. So this is looking forward to actually break ground in over a year from now. I guess I'll let you talk about the other couple projects.
So just to touch on asset management, and I'm going to go back to the Saline Valley Walk plan. So asset management, we have the desire to have non-motorized connectors. Well, we get the non-motorized connector, but we also build the sewer access out of it. We get more funding, and it's dual purpose. The light road rehabilitation project that's coming, we've done a lot of heavy road jobs the last 3 years. We purposely left some cul-de-sacs and spurs in those project areas to capitalize, like to kind of collect the economies of scale of mill and overlay. Those roads didn't have utilities under them. They didn't need to be completely dug up, the small spurs. So we waited until we had a package of roads that need a mill and overlay. And we've been lucky enough to partner up with Washtenaw County and leverage their unit pricing for these smaller jobs. So the past 3 years, there's been construction. We're gonna come back one more time, and we're doing the light road rehabilitation. We also have lane striping coming up, which I consider light, and we also have some joint and crack sealing. Sewer rehabilitation, we were talking about the PACER rating on the roads. Well, there's a standard, PACP, MACP. There's a national standard for rating sewer pipe, sewer manholes, and storm manholes. So what we're doing is getting into our sewers. We're inspecting the sewers, bringing that data back out. We have a place for it in GIS, so we can start programming out. We can actually know what our budget needs to be to keep our sewers at a dependable level of service, so we're not having excavations on sewer pipe. There's different fixes, just like in the roads, there's spot liners and manhole-to-manhole liners, and there's grouting. We'll be using all of those to maximize the dollars that we have for keeping our sewers healthy. Oh, I was getting shy. Okay.
And last but certainly not least is our wastewater treatment plant and rehabilitation project. This project has been about 3 to 4 years in the making and will be a project that is under construction for the next 3 years or so. It's $81 million, all things considered, both hard and soft costs associated with the project. We do expect that there will be significant construction on site. It's a very tight site, so we'll be sending out additional communication to directly adjacent residents in the weeks ahead and making sure that they are updated as we move through the process. But probably early work commencing in October or November of this year, with that work really ramping up in the spring of 2024. The goal being to create a more resilient wastewater processing system and ultimately to create an effluent, what comes out of our plant, that is more reliable in terms of meeting state standards for environmental quality. One thing I will say is we already have a lot of folks following this project on ClearGov, so please log into that ClearGov portal. There's a way to sign up for updates. Anytime we make a change, you'll automatically get it. With that, we'd be happy to turn it over to questions, and if you give me just one moment, we'll hand out this microphone, and I got a new one for these guys.
We'll move up, right? Oh, I can walk that around, Mayor.
That's,
Almost look like us. I'll pass it around.
no, you stay there.
Okay.
'Cause I think most of the questions are probably going to be for you and Tesha. My apologies, because I was making an extra pot of coffee, and while not directly related to city infrastructure, it does fall under your purview as DPW director. What is the most recent update on fall leaf collection that residents can expect this October and November?
Okay, so we're taking a different approach this year. We're going to do a circuit-based approach instead of saying north or south. We found in the recent past, the weather has kind of changed a little bit. And the fall of the leaves on certain species of trees is pretty unpredictable. So what we're going to do is work out a start to finish route. We're going to share that all over the city everywhere we can. And we're going to update each night or every couple of days where we're at on that map. So hopefully it allows us to better serve the residents and give the residents better notice of when it's time to get their leaves out. In the past, and I see Eric Grossman in the back, sometimes we get buried in areas and we're not back to the other side of Michigan Ave for 3, 4, 5 days, and then the residents think we forgot about it. So hopefully this will help us give you a better service and be more economical with it.
Now, I'm cognizant that it's September the 14th, so we're about a month out. When do you expect leaf collection to begin, and what do you anticipate the duration of that collection will be?
I'm hoping it would be done in 28 days. That's the hopes. Again, we're just got to really pay attention for when the leaves start, because the leaf sucker will go out solo to help keep the storm sewers happy. But then when the rest of the leaves start coming down, we're going to come out full force and hopefully get it done in two passes of the city, maybe 2.5, not meaning short.
So 28 days, so anticipated start probably mid-October?
Yes.
Okay, mid-November. Very good. Questions for city engineer, DPW director, or city manager? Or, of course, I could address some of your questions as well. If you'd please introduce yourself, we'd love to know who we're talking to.
I'm Rick Gervais. My question, you talked a lot about the wastewater treatment plant and the sewers and what have you, and clearly it's a huge, huge problem. Examples would be like today, some of the neighborhoods ended up with a whole bunch of brown water. Do you have any idea, A, what might have caused that today, and B, how will what you're doing in the future address that need?
Well, the discoloration in the water, the wastewater treatment plant that's not any impact at all on the discoloration in the water. We have had an issue with capacity. We don't have a lot. One of our wells, if you were following any of the DPW discussions, we lost well 4 months ago. It's a slow process getting the approvals from Eagle to get the new replacement well back up, and that was a large percentage of our production. As a DPW, the collection and distribution system, we have put off and postponed a whole cycle of systematic flushing and slowed down the monthly flushing. Those were awesome tools, and they were working. We went from 30, 40 complaints to 2, 3 complaints. But today, I don't have my finger on what happened at production, meaning at the water plant, not the wastewater plant. But something definitely disrupted the system. It was very obvious and isolated in the northwest sections of the city. I have tracked all of those complaints and asked everyone, please, the best tools we have is locations and times. So we're flushing, we're gonna flush tomorrow, and we're gonna get the lines cleaned out.
Yeah, and Tesha, if you may, if I want to piggyback on the gentleman's question, if you want to respond, and then if also, you also want to do some messaging on the value of our valve inspection initiative that's ongoing and the impacts that will ultimately have on water quality.
Yeah, so yes, I can touch on both. So I think I'm using this correctly? So for well 4, just the impact of well 4 was massive on our system. Well 4, for just reference purposes, I'm approximate numbers here, but let's say it was producing on average about 1,200 gallons per minute. It was our biggest producer. Our next best producing well is between 600 and 700 gallons per minute. We do have 5 wells in our well field, but when we lost well 4, we lost a huge amount of our production. What happens in the summer demand season is everyone turns on their sprinklers and their pools, and our demand goes up significantly, so everybody turns on their taps. And I'm not sure how close we were to running out of water this past June because we did not have well 4 and because of the drought conditions. So, and I say that not as but we truly were on the razor thin edge, and this well 4 is set us back tremendously on the improvements we made in the distribution system. So when I first came online, one of the first things I brought to council was the recalibration of the water model, and to do that we had to do hydrant flushing, and we got the hydrant flushing in before we lost well 4, and we proved that we had some artificial dead ends in our system. So an unlooped water system, when you have dead ends, you're reducing pressure, reducing reliability, and increasing clarity issues. So we were able to solve a lot of that. We lined Michigan Avenue in 2022, the summer of 2022, right after I started. And then we lost well 4, and we could no longer flush our system. We canceled those system flushing because we did not have the water to do. You imagine when you open up a hydrant, it's a much larger demand than when the other things in the system. So well 4 has set us back in time. And so we said 18 months ago, it's going to take us 18 months to clear up the system, and now we're back at start 1. We're actually behind because in that process, at the well 4, we've learned, sent a bunch of sand into our plant, so it ruined some valves, it hurt some systems at our water treatment plant. So now the plant has been down to rectify those systems, those valves that were impacted. We had a discharge pump and some impellers were impacted by the sand. So when the impellers broke, it was rattling pipes, causing hammer in our system. So the plant has then been down, sending out raw water, so we're really climbing an uphill battle right now, but we know the plan. we just got to get the well in and get the plan implemented for that. And then for I guess I touched a little bit on the valves with the mayor's point, because that is key to a healthy water system, is keeping all your loops open and keeping the system flowing throughout the conveyance system.
And if I can add to that, that was in the very early stages of asset management and GIS for our city and for our system. And I think we thought we had 10 million valves, and we found out we didn't have 10 million valves. And we've got the right number, and we've got that map very accurate. You can kind of walk right up and confidently go to a water valve now. One thing I know we did not, Mayor, I could be wrong, we did not demand or make a mandate of water restrictions, but we asked for water restrictions, and that was an awesome response. Helped tremendously.
I think as Tesha indicated back in probably mid to early June.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additional questions?
Yeah, I'm Doug Veenstra, and I called twice today because of brown water. I was not overwhelmed by the response I got. The person that answered the phone said, yes, they were flushing hydrants somewhere. Had no idea as to how long the event would last. I got absolutely no feedback as to what was going on, where it was going on, and how soon I could expect to have reasonably clean water. It went on for at least 3 hours, and I think that's actually unacceptable. You need to be able to tell your citizens what's going on, how long it's going to last, and when it'll be fixed.
So that's my department. That would have been one of two people that answered the phone and doing the best they can with the volume of calls they were taking. We do have reporting tools that we can instantly respond to you. I was the one calling people back. If I talk to anyone in this room, help me out here, how long were we on the phone? 20, 30 minutes, because people were very upset and very concerned. I couldn't call everyone back. I still have a list, a spreadsheet of every person that called. I made it about halfway down the list for a callback. So if you ask for a callback, I'm behind. Spent most of today on the phone.
Why don't we make sure, subsequent to this evening's town hall, Director Searles, that we get Mr. Veenstra's contact information, that you can follow up with him tomorrow, pinpoint the issue in his specific neighborhood, and work expeditiously to mitigate that.
And I'd like to add to that, we're still working on the tools. This is my third municipality I've worked for, and we definitely are behind in our inventory and tracking tools, especially to make something public-facing, to give live updates on our system. We're getting close. So what we have done over the last year is gotten an inventory of our system. We have GIS up and running. We have dashboards. We almost have them available for our internal staff to see. And then next step will be the public. And then I envision, I mean, I came from a municipality that exactly, you could call and they'd say, oh, look, they're flushing right down the road from you right now. I see they just flushed that 2 minutes ago, because it would instantly update. We're not there. We're just a smaller municipality. We're getting there. And so without the data, so to provide those timely, I mean, I wish I could tell you when it would be over too. But there's these slugs in the system. We're gonna step up the flushing as much as we can with the well being down, and that's what I did.
Okay.
Mary Hess, I think it's important that you address what Eagle is, because you mentioned it, and yet it's a very, very important part. And also, are the street sweepers still going, and when will they be done?
You want to take the Eagle portion and have Director Searles' message on street sweeping?
You can add to my Eagle if you want. I'm going to do quick and short and sweet. They're a regulatory agency, so we're the owners, and Eagle stands for environment. It's the state of Michigan's version of the EPA. It stands for Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. In my career, that has been called the MDEQ, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. It was called the MDNR, the Michigan Department of Natural Resource. But now it's currently the Michigan, Environment, Great Lakes, and EGLE is where Eagle comes from. So that's now the new acronym for our regulatory agency that is for the state of Michigan.
For water and sewer.
Oh, good ad.
And environment, and storm.
And the dam.
So so
for a lot of stuff.
So the street sweeper is out year-round, not every day. We have our major streets being swept while you guys are sleeping, about 4 a.m. to 7. We don't have it out as much as we want to have it out, but we sweep at least monthly, but we don't touch every street as much as we need to.
And again, just for the public's edification, the street sweeper is usually operating when many of us, myself included, are still asleep.
Yes, our guys rotate their shift and come in.
Much like when we do spring and fall flushing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Kathy Schultz, I'm wondering, when we do have the green or the brown water, is it safe to drink? And when it's clear, then it's safe to drink? How do we know?
The discoloration that you're seeing in coming out of your faucet is the materials, the iron materials that are flaking off the inside of the water main. It's actually, the water always touches that, whether it's transporting it to your faucet or not. The system has been closed. It is still closed. If we have a water turnoff, or we have to shut the water down and the water goes below 20 PSI, we're required by Eagle then to notify and do boil water and do sampling. The water system did not lose pressure. I'm not sure what caused the water hammer so severely in the area, but I'm going to keep looking for the clues to tell the story of why.
I'll add to that. Yeah, so he's basically mineral content in the water that's coming out. But I believe before I started, at some point we were taking, and I know Bill's not here today to speak to the analytical results, but I don't know if yes. So
Would you like to comment on that?
Yes, as Director Searles noted, the system is still closed. There's no reason to suspect that there are any issues with the water that's coming out discolored, isn't within the parameters that we set when they leave the plant for safety. And when we previously did water quality testing for anyone that had brown water back in September of 21, or was it? Yeah, 21, none of those samples came back with any concerning results for us.
Let me add to that too, and I believe we have both still available at the front counter, but at any time if a resident or business owner, property owner had concerns about water quality, we offer 2 free tests. One is you obviously provide us a sample and it's tested at our wastewater treatment plant, and then the second one is independent and is tested. The other thing that I would mention to you and anyone else, and this recommendation came directly from the DPW Director Searles, and I'm not sure I ever followed up with you on it. We had talked about 1.5 years ago about pre-filtration devices for the home. Yeah. You recommended several to me, and I had purchased the cheapest of your recommendations. It was about a $55 GE product on Amazon. Works perfectly. It calls for a replacement filter. I don't replace the filter when it gets brown, which it very seldom does now, or when I see a reduction in water pressure, I just wash the filter and put it back in.
That's the best way to do it. You do not have to spend a lot of money to get that, well, no risk white laundry, right?
So if you'd like to chat afterwards, I'd be happy to share that information with you or anybody else. Additional questions? I think you had one.
This is going to sound sort of silly. When I first moved into this area, I thought the water was very hard from where I used to live. In the new water treatment plant, will it be softer? Because I'm in the point of putting in a water softener because the water...
There's not a new water treatment plant. It's a new sewer treatment plant.
Oh.
The water plant is 2006, 7, 3. So it's not new. We do have some newer technologies on the filtration, but we're not getting new water.
So the water will just be the same hard. Okay, I'll go ahead with my water softener. Thank you.
And we do blend with, because of the RO treatment that we have, we blend it. So yes, the RO treatment that we have, so we blend the RO water with raw water to get the softness, or it might be harder.
I did take a sample, I had it tested, and they said it was within whatever the parameters are. They told me it was okay, but personally, I found it hard from where I used to live.
So RO, reverse osmosis. That's a system of filtration that takes everything out of the water. You wouldn't want to drink that. No. It's overly soft and very aggressive. So we blend it back with raw water, treated raw water, so that it's at a level of hardness that's safe. It provides you the minerals in your body to absorb water. So we're right there. Some people are happy with this.
Gordon Peters, I live on Saline River Drive. There's been a couple of, I thought, approvals for the sidewalk from the car dealership to the dam. Is that ever going to get done?
I'll say my focus has been on essential services since I've started, and our staff focuses have been on that. So you're right. I think we got approval for design. It's currently unfunded project, and my Department of Funds resources have been spent on our sanitary sewer, water, and storm, more so than pathways.
Yes, and I can just add, so obviously tonight we touched on the Saline River Valley pathway that is going in and that we received outside grant funding for. The ultimate goal would be to connect the west side existing sidewalk to that pathway, which would involve additional sidewalk along US 12. But to Engineer Humphreys' point, as of right now, there's not a dedicated funding stream for that project, so we will continue to have to work within the existing parameters that we have for our budget to figure out how we can make that happen. The first step will be seeking easements because the stretch of land along there, I think we need a little bit more space to make a sidewalk work effectively. But it's not completely off the radar. It's just one of those projects that doesn't quite have the funding secured behind it just yet.
And I would recommend going online and looking at our non-motorized plan, though. I myself live and walk Saline a lot, and we have there's exciting non-motorized. So from Mill Pond, and one of the reasons we changed the name to it is to Saline River Valley Trail is because it continued. We have the non-motorized plans has to continue north from Mill Pond, so north up through Waterworks, which is still the Saline River Valley, and south from there through Curtis Park, south from there across Monroe through Salt Springs Park. So there is this large non-motorized plan for the city of Saline, but we don't have the funding or the staff right now to. But it's exciting, and I think we'll get there. We have to check off, though, a couple of these larger essential infrastructure projects first, in my opinion.
The other question I have is to address the whole dam issue in more detail. We've lived in Saline for 39 years, and in the mid to late 80s, they drained the mill pond. And I don't see how getting rid of the dam is gonna give us any more than a step over creek, because I've seen that when they drained it before.
So right now, as far as the dam is, I'm surprised. That was one of the things I was, on my list. It's a dam that was built in the 1800s. I was really worried about when I first took this job as far as infrastructure that I'm going to be overseeing. And but we have a good consulting team on that, and it's kind of holding its own right now, but it is an old structure that is showing signs of failure. So the dam itself is just showing its age. It has its concrete, the pier walls of the dam, we are required to do triannual inspections. We did the last one in 2020. We just did this recent one in August of 23. The deterioration on the pier walls is concerning, and we're planning that the dam will not be standing on its own, in my tenure, in the next 25 years. So we're planning we're either gonna have to put massive repairs into the dam or plan for removal of the dam. The other oncoming thing is regulations. The Eagle, because of the issues in Midland, have increased the capacity regulations. So we're certain that we're going to fail the capacity requirements for our existing dam in our 2026 inspection. So we're going to have massive needs, millions of dollars of needs to be put into that dam. So the question is, does it make sense to put millions of dollars to retain the pond? Or does it make more sense to remove it and make it a nice meandering stream and turn it back to more of its natural state and turn it into a park? So I'm very proud to say that we got a lot of money from the state of Michigan to study just that and the feasibility of just that. So what I envision, this is a slow-moving project. I don't envision anything's going to happen to the dam until after at least the 2026 inspection. But with time, we need to plan for that dam. Mayor, I don't know what's going to be the outcome of the feasibility study.
Engineer Humphreys, can you confirm for me, the city manager and I had just had a conversation about the dam earlier this week. The feasibility study that is ongoing, we expect that to be returned to staff for their comments and then subsequently provided to council in probably the first half of 2024?
Yeah, at least a year from now is what we're planning for.
To the engineer point, I don't anticipate anything significant, substantive changing with the dam, but certainly by the time City Council receives a feasibility study and starts discussing the possibilities of either restoring the existing structure or moving in a new direction of removing the dam, we will certainly have ample opportunity for public comment, probably have a town hall, several coffee hours. So you, especially those who live in the vicinity, will be well informed at what will happen with that particular structure.
And if I may, it's a feasibility study. Once this study's done, they may say you can't remove it, and you must invest $71 million.
We might find that
We don't even know if we can. And what's great is we have free money to find out what the options are, what the environment needs, what the river needs, and then what the community needs.
I think that's a great point. I'm only one member of council, but I'm intentionally reticent to offer an opinion on the subject until I have a chance to digest that feasibility study. Additional questions, ma'am? Yes. Yep, please.
So in the study we got all the money for, is there a parallel study to come up with the actual figure, or is it just going to be maybe millions of dollars? Is there any way we're going to know it's $2 million to fix the dam and $10 million to take it out?
Yeah, that is part of the feasibility study is the cost estimates and a rendering, which I think is one of the two big things that the public wants. Those are two of the endpoints of the study. Like Larry, there's soil analysis, there's a lake level, there's legal analysis with a court order on a court-ordered lake level. There's other analysis that needs to be done besides just that. But those are the last two tasks that our consultant has in their proposal. Yes.
I'm Karen Peters. To tag I watched the council meeting that was in June, and it was said that the Spicer Group was instrumental in helping secure the grant. To me, isn't that a conflict of interest that the group that helped secure the grant is the company that's doing the work?
The grant was secured, right, the company did a lot of pro bono work for us to get the grant. And it was, and Eagle's the one that ultimately decided and who got, so no, I don't believe it's the company. I don't give, yeah.
Well, I do, because if the company that's doing the survey is ultimately going to get the work to remove the dam, I don't think they're going to be objective.
There's zero plan for removing the dam with this study to see if it's possible for the dam to be removed, or if it's required that we're going to have to do investment. This is not a dam removal project. This is just see if it's possible.
And to add to that, they would get more money if we left the dam in place because they would have ongoing repairs and inspections for like.
Well, I thought earlier you said that the ongoing repairs might be more significant than just removing the dam.
Exactly, so they would get that work. That would be better, that would in theory be more beneficial for them. Ongoing work forever. Yeah. Removal of the dam is a set point for a consultant, then they have no more work from the dam. The dam's there forever. It just, that's, I guess, where my logic is going with. So I really don't think it's a conflict of interest. I viewed it as a benefit to the city because they did a lot of the packet that we had to submit to the state to get the money, and it was a very competitive grant. We were one of the few entities that got it not for an actual construction project. We got it for a feasibility study, and the reason they gave it to us because they said that the feasibility of removing is ultimately removing the risk, but that means we had a lot of stuff to submit to the state to get the grant, and Spicer was instrumental, they were, in getting that together for us.
Well, and just to add further, this study isn't costing us nothing. I understand that Eagle is funding 80%, but $48,000 is still being paid by the city to do this study, which that money could have been used towards the repair of the dam. So it's not costing the city nothing.
That's correct. It's an 80% match.
Okay.
And that was budgeted for.
Yes, and I do want to remind folks to hold the microphone. Please don't hold it by the antenna because it obstructs our ability to record and to hear your voice properly.
Eric Grossman, while we're on the subject of the dam, I brought up 2 or 3 years ago that the alarm has been inactive for over a decade, and as far as I know, that has never been put back into service, and that's really the highest risk to the dam, is not knowing the elevation of the water, because all the marks on the dam that are there visually for the police to see are also gone. So any stormwater too that heads from the north, you may not get a rain event in Saline, but it's gonna impact the dam. And I'm just wondering, is there any movement towards putting the alarm back in service? Because it's really a cheap element to do, and it's very risky not to have it.
Eric, the biggest challenge right now was getting power, because what we're looking at is some super safety as far as risk mitigation. You know, in your experience, we're hauling out generators to do everything. When we got to fix the railing, the fencing, we're working on getting electric power to the dam that would bring in modern components for dam level alarms and monitoring, light for safety, and power to use equipment there, tools and equipment. So it's in that, we are in process of that right now. We've had some, you know, sometimes it's not the easiest to get everything set up with DTE, but we're in that process right now, Eric.
The old alarm's still in the west spillway.
Yep.
And that was hooked to the phone line. So can you at least re-engage that until you get the more deluxe one? Because it's very risky.
Yeah, I would have to look into it more, because it's never worked since I've been here. So I didn't even know there was a capability outside of the colored marks.
Yeah, it's still there.
Okay.
Before I came here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into that, Eric. Thank you.
we would have a hard stop this evening at 7 o'clock because our Historic District Commission will be having their monthly September meeting in this space, which you're of course welcome to attend. We've got about 45 minutes left, so we will have time for second questions or even third, but I do want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to share their question, at least one question first.
Joan Roth on Anwood Court, just behind the wastewater treatment plant. But I'm talking about the sweeper. It came by on garbage day, and we're in a very tight court. And often the waste management backs into the court in order to empty our bins. And I was surprised to see the sweeper last week come by on garbage day. Had to completely go around all the bins that were in the court. So it's just an FYI.
I got you. This is not an excuse. I've been asked for more sweeping. We're doing more sweeping, and sometimes we're going to go on garbage day. It's like when we have cars parked, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but I still need to get more. I need to get more time with that broom on our streets. And sometimes it's not the best time, but that day I had a man available and the equipment available, so we rolled it anyway. Because it wasn't garbage day on the other side. You know what I mean? Might as well keep a full circuit. Yeah.
Hi, this is Molly Lumpert-Coy, and I happen to wear the hat of DTE. So do you have a work order number established? Have you gone through service planning?
We are all set. It's moving.
Okay, so if there's any issues, that's what I'm here for.
I didn't need to send it to you. We got it handled.
Perfect, okay, that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. Okay, I'll make sure I've got a couple folks with second questions. Fred, yeah?
Thank you, Brian. Fred Lepton. What is the infrastructure project taking place between Lee Bear and Flat Out on Woodland Drive?
We didn't put it on there. Our lift station modernization project. It's pretty big.
It is, yeah, we should have put it on there.
Yeah, so at that one, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest one of the lift stations. We're touching multiple stations. We're bringing in modern SCADA controls, PLC panels. At Woodland, we're actually getting a much larger wet well. Wet wells stores the liquid and then the larger pumps. And so that one's been taken a little bit because they had to go pretty deep.
Yes, I was gonna say, yeah, I was just gonna, so it's for sanitary sewer, the wastewater, when you flush your toilets, it's a pump station, which is a localized low point. So there's a big hole in the ground that the gravity discharges to, and then there's pumps and a valve vault. And so it's like a small little mechanical, it's all underground. That's why you drive by it and barely see it. You just see a control panel sticking up above grade. But there was only a small wet well there, and there's a large industrial area there. You've got American Soy, some of our largest users are there. So that was undersized. So we're up, and that's why it's been there for so long, because they had to dig down 25 feet deep. Another deep work, and and the other one that is associated with that is on Maple Road. So the Maplewood pump station, and unfortunately with that one, it actually had a failure about a month before we got there with our improvement. The parts were in, the contractor was lined up, and so we actually were out there on an emergency repair in July and August, and now the contractor's actually out there doing the upgrades as part of this pump station modernization project. So that project is on ClearGov, and we absolutely should have included it in this, and we should have included it in this.
Can I brag for just a moment about the industrial lift station for just a moment, Fred? I appreciate that question. And my comments here speak to the value of maintaining and establishing relationships, especially in government. So I believe $599,099 of that project came from essentially a federal earmark that was secured by our former Congressman Tim Walberg, who of course has been redistricted out of this area. And Tim Walberg, on a human personal level, he and his wife Sue are lovely people. Politically, he and I do not agree on, we don't agree on anything, actually. But we always maintained a cordial and professional relationship, and his office had reached out to me, I think, in late 2019 and said, we have the opportunity to fund 3 infrastructure projects in the 7th Congressional District. If you have any, get them to us fast. We turned something in, and Saline, the city of Jackson, the city of Adrian were the only municipalities in the 7th Congressional District to get funding during that round. So it was very exciting. I was very pleased. And I thank Congressman Walberg for his leadership on that one singular particular issue.
I hope I'm holding this right. Anyway, you said $81 million for the wastewater treatment plant. I know that the citizens of Saline had a jackup of their water and sewer rates, and apparently there's going to be another one in the future. Any idea if that's 6 months or a year?
You want to do this? So first of all, just for everyone's edification, the City of Saline staff and council, and sometimes an independent third-party consultant, assess utility rates on an annual basis. So that transpires far apart from any rehabilitation at the wastewater treatment plant. But I'll let the city manager elaborate.
Yes, the bulk of the increase has already been experienced because we anticipated this large of a project. We say 81 million, but in reality, about 3 to 4 million of that was already sunk costs that we spent on studies, on preliminary design. 5 million of it we now know is being offset by the state of Michigan, thanks to the help of our local state representatives. 65 million of it we have a loan for that has some principal forgiveness assigned to it. So those numbers, now that we have hard information, have gone back to our financial advisors to rerun the calculations and determine how that will spread over time. But the goal has always been that that first jump was really going to be the biggest for us, and we're doing everything in our power to make sure that future increases are much more nominal. Now that's to say, you know, we don't have the final numbers yet in terms of what our financial advisors are recommending, but I expect that conversation will be occurring probably in late October, early November with the city council.
And let me just add, I know many of you have heard this ad nauseum. The city manager just messaged on this. So Senator Jeff Irwin and State Representative Felicia Brayback secured in the recently approved state budget, which will go into effect October 1. Their fiscal year is different than the city's. Ours starts July 1, ends June 30th. States is much like the federal government. It begins October 1 and ends September 30th. In that approved budget, there is literally, if you wanted to look through the budget in its totality, if you suffer from insomnia and need something to read at night, take a look. But there is a specific line item that says City of Saline Wastewater Treatment Plant. We're getting a $5 million allocation in this upcoming fiscal year. Our federal representatives, Senators Stabenow and Peters, and our new congressperson, Debbie Dingell, have fought for a similar amount. It is in conference committee right now with federal appropriators, and we're slated to receive anywhere between about $1 million and $2 million. Hopefully it'll be closer to the $2 million side, but I fully expect that we will get something. Now, I articulate all of this to underscore the need that we will be asking our elected officials in future years to provide grants and direct allocations and earmarks again. And those efforts are only successful if elected officials, appointed officials, and private citizens avail themselves of the democratic process and reach out to our elected officials, write them letters, make phone calls, send emails. So I'm just putting you on notice that, again, in early 2024, probably January, February, March, we'll be making these formal requests again, and I'm asking each of you individually, as along with your neighbors, friends, and colleagues, and any property owners in the city, to reach out to those officials to ensure that we get the dollars that we need. Additional questions, please.
Hello? I'm actually here for a pretty different reason. I'm here to find out what residential streets are slated to be repaired or replaced next year, 24.
So I'm going to answer that question with, well, right now, our 2024, the only project that we have on engineering DPW is the Mill Pond Saline Valley River Trail Phase 1. The reason for that with the roads is that I'm very proud to say that Saline Council approved the first ever transportation asset management plan this spring, maybe April-ish of this year. And as Larry was talking about earlier, we have this summer gone and successfully taken cores all over the city. You might have seen putting little holes in the road. And what this transportation asset management plan is going to do for us is going to align all of our, and you're asking about residential streets, so local roads. And we have two categories of roads, local and major roads. So major's Maple, local roads are what, you can imagine in a residential neighborhood. And we have different funding for those roads. We get more money for our major roads. We have more federal funding sources for our major roads than we do for our residential roads. So our transportation asset management plan, we're getting a holistic view of all of our road needs across the city, and council is going to be tasked with the hard decision on how we're going to spend the money. And we, as department heads are trying to implement the right fix at the right time. So spending more money earlier in the pavement deterioration process to get more bang for our buck out of all of our roads, as opposed to going at the end of when a road has already failed and totally rebuilding the road. So the short answer to your question is, right now, there's none slated for next season, but we're coming with this plan that we're excited to show to what our needs, our gap is, and what we done next year.
Yeah, short answer is, we have not programmed them out yet. We have all the data in our database we're going to be looking at. We have our water main break frequency, we have our failure rates, we have our sewer ratings. We're putting all of these projects in, it's all in the same map. We then bring it to council to see how, you do not want to end up with Old Creek. You do not want to end up thinking you're going to do a mill and overlay, and then you get to the project and you hit the cores, and all of a sudden you're $500,000 short of being able to rebuild the road. Because from the surface, you can't always tell the condition of the road bed. They don't always show themselves. So what we've done is we have a holistic view and rating of our roads. We're going to match that with the water, the storm, the sewer, and get full, complete projects that don't have us coming back because we left something behind.
Larry, Tesha, did you make mention earlier this evening of the city's capital improvement plan, which residents can find online? That does provide a rough schedule of when not just roads, but other infrastructure projects will be initiated. It is subject to change, depending on the availability of funds. That document there should be a hard copy in the lobby, and then one on the city's website as well.
Yeah,
ClearGov shows 5-6 years out.
Okay.
But with roads, it shows the transportation asset management. So as far as defined roads, 5-6 years out, I think maybe a federally funded defined roads on there. But beyond that, in residential roads, we don't identify near, because we're doing exactly what Larry said.
Okay.
We don't have the neighborhood identified next.
You've been waiting.
Yep. All right, this is about Maple Road. Is there any chance you could do some of the work at night? So like, it won't ever, yeah.
No, we have a noise ordinance, and for safety,
Oh, you
it would
can't
have to be work that was completely safe to do at night, and it's not safe.
You can't do any of it at night.
Not all work can be done at night safely.
I want to circle back to at the beginning when you were talking about the failure of well number 4. What steps are we taking? It sounds like that we were caught off guard with that failure. Is that correct?
We were trying to fix the well, and it broke while we were fixing. So well 4 was one of our original wells, is my understanding. So we had wells 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the original site. Wells 1, 2, and 3 had been lined historically because of just age. And when the wells got lined, they lost capacity, which is one of the reasons why 4 was one of our best producing wells, because we had not been lined yet, because it just was beating the other odds. We had already started, luckily. We have on our master plan, like looking for another, we know we need another well source beyond these. And then, yes, we lost well 4. So we're scheduled, we have now well 7 is replacing well 4. It's been an extraordinarily long time with Eagle to get the approvals, but we are now, it will be online by the end of 2024, or this year, 2023. The well 4 we're months out now.
There's one more.
The test well's been done,
One more certification from Eagle that we're ready. Then we have to build the pipe, and then it will actually be producing.
But we've gotten down to depth, we've gotten all the sample, that's the big test. So we've passed all the initial tests, so we're just in the final stages of Eagle approval now to get well 7 now, which is well 4's replacement up and running.
So would it be fair to say, since wells 1, 2, and 3 have already been lined, that those are less apt to fail?
No. Different types of failures. This one happened to be the casing. That's why they were lined to protect the casing. The motors can go bad, but they're fixable. This particular well, what happened when they tried to grout the sleeve, well, it infiltrated into the well and essentially capped itself.
Okay. Well, just my concern is that we try to be proactive going forward so we don't have a failure like this again. You were talking about at the beginning, doing this long-term planning, and
That's what we're excited about doing. I'm excited to get a good master plan for our water system, because I agree, our water system, we need a good, yes.
Maybe this is a question best directed to DPW Director Searles. We've had at least one comment this evening about consternation regarding ongoing construction on Maple Road, excuse me, which is very reasonable considering the length and the complexity of the project. I'm not sure if you mentioned this at the top of the program this evening, but I think it bears messaging on, which is, while what residents and property owners in that vicinity are experiencing today is inconvenient and is a bit of a hardship, had we not enlarged that sanitary sewer capacity, the ramifications of that decision, either not doing it or delaying it, would have been, at least in my judgment, and I think it's pretty good judgment, maybe not catastrophic, but really bad. Can you elaborate on that?
Well,
the genesis behind the project and what potentially could have been experienced by homeowners had the project not been done?
Well, even before we talk about the risk of the sewer being a little aged, we couldn't expand. The East Belt trunk line, we could not take in new growth into the city. The rates, we want comfortable rates, we need to share them. We want to have reliable services so people are happy to pay them. But without East Belt being done, essentially we were done growing in that belt. We're looking at West Belt proactively, looking at West Belt to get ahead of it. Proactively, we're citing for our next well to be built. But the sewer job enlargement, upsize, we had to do. We had to do it, or Belterrace.
Well, no, I think it was essentially at capacity even before the addition of Belterrace. But if I'm not mistaken, if you had a sewer that was already at capacity and then you're adding users to the system, you could have discharge into, which would, you do not want to back up in your home, flat, or apartment. Yeah. I think Jim Roth had a question here, and then I'll get back to you, Mr. Veenstra. I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to ask at least one question.
Jim Roth, I just wanted to circle back to the question regarding roads for next year's plan. I know there's a separate road millage that we pay. I think we should know what's going to happen for next year rather than the Riverwalk. Did I have a misunderstanding?
So
And I would hope that money is banked, that we get roads done.
Yeah, so the road funding for the next so the road funding right now, East Belt is using some of the road funding to cap East Belt. And so our road funding is like 1.5 million a year, and East Belt's using 1.5 of it.
The local millage generates about $500,000 a year. For context, that is not enough money to rebuild any singular road. That's maybe, yes, or maybe a small mill and overlay. That is really used to supplement our efforts to go after other grant dollars, other federal funding, other local funding. We do get a small amount from the county every year. That being said, we do still also have dead ends planned for this year. So there are a small four dead ends planned for a mill and fill. But again, we understand that local millage is out there. I do want to set realistic expectations about how much that generates and how much work can be generated from that $500,000. It really does not go as far as one might hope.
And because the concern was articulated, I think it's a legitimate one. The Riverwalk, certainly not as essential as a local or major street, but there's not one penny from the street village going to the Saline Valley River Trail.
Correct, and as of the most recent update, we have more than enough in grant funding to cover the cost of that project.
I apologize if that was confusing. I was just referencing upcoming projects for next construction season. I wasn't intending to tie the road dollars to that. Absolutely not. But, and our millage actually is over as of next year. So our next 2 fiscal years, the road millage that we all paid for went to Clark and Maple.
Okay,
Not even paid for all of that. And not even paid for all that. We needed additional money. Oh, well, that's actually, I'm sorry.
We also maintain the roads, our patches, our pothole patching, our salting, our plowing, that's all paid for out of that too.
Okay, the question that I have regarding the expansion of capacity to handle new growth. Am I paying for that expansion so that Pulte homes can benefit, or is Pulte paying for the expansion through the tap-in fees. Because I think that if we're talking about expansion, the areas that are expanding, that are increasing the demand ought to pay their fair share.
Now, I will say that was
Colleen, in all fairness, Colleen's got the best answer to this. Yeah.
No, you are not paying for new development. New development is handled through tap-in fees, and the city negotiates development fees with individual developers when they come into the community. Those tap-in fees are directly calculated based on what those new users are actually costing to the system. So we calculate something called a residential equivalency unit. If we were to say put in a new water tower, we would identify preemptively the cost of that water tower and then assign a value to each new residential equivalency unit. And the developer would have to pay a tap-in fee that was based on the number of units that they were creating.
Can we stick on the gentleman's question for just a moment, specific to Layer Farms or Bella Terrace at Layer Farms? So not only did that developer will pay tap-in fees for all of the connecting units, of course they also paid for the streets and the storm sewers and the sanitary lines. But in addition, if I'm not mistaken, also the pathway that's in front of the neighborhood.
Correct.
As long as upgrades to the Maple Road lift station and a generator for that site.
Correct, all correct.
What's an example of a tap-in fee?
Do you know the tap-in fees are?
We just looked at them. They go up exponentially as you get into size to like 153,000 for a 4-inch. I mean, they're substantial.
Yeah, I feel like a residential one.
They're online.
The last I checked, it was between 8,000 and 9,000 for both water and sewer together for the average residential unit.
I think that's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
yeah, and they are online.
So imagine multiplying that by 200, 300, 400 new homes, and they make a substantial contribution.
Well, and specific to Layer Farms or Bella Terrace, I think that's 155. So multiply the 8,000 by that number. That's not insignificant. Say again?
Are they in the township?
No, that's Layer Farms, Bella Terrace, the old Bub Layer property on North Maple that was annexed into the city via the annexation agreement with Pittsfield Township that dates back to the early 1980s. Chuck?
Chuck Lesh, I'm on the Park Commission, so we're actually very interested in the wastewater treatment expansion. So, you know, building this thing while having to keep it running too, I understand that they're going to be using People's Park as a staging area. Is it?
For an all projects, Colleen, on this one. This is not our project.
Our hands are full.
I'll give it back to you.
Yes.
All on its own.
As of right now, the project calls for using the parking lot at People's Park and creating a temporary drive to the wastewater treatment plant. Now, that being said, we are reaching out to private property owners in the area to see if they would be more amenable to hosting that construction equipment, so we don't have to do that. But worst case scenario, you will see construction equipment staging at People's Park for that period of time.
Anything else, Chuck? No? Okay. Fred?
Willis Road, where it enters York Township, is that county road or city road?
And it's county road. County
I was
road.
afraid
All
of
the
that.
townships, County Road Commission over maintains.
It's
Fred starts just east of Woodhill Drive.
that little section there deteriorates so quickly, and it's funny, the line between York Township and Saline, the road is actually sinking there, and it's a pretty dramatic dip, and I never know who's patching and who's repairing.
In fairness, because I have a lot of friends and colleagues who work at the Road Commission, if you go to their website, there is a very useful reporting tool, and their communications department is excellent about getting back to you. So if you'd like to report that, I know that they would welcome that, and I would suspect you'll receive some sort of email or communique within 48 hours, especially if it's during the business week.
You're right. I agree with you, Brian. They do have, yeah, they use C-Click Fixate. Yep.
Yep. Please.
This is more like a information safety issue. At the Saline, or at the Stonecliff Park, there's a willow tree in the low-lying area, and every time it rains, it's like 4 feet of water around it. So I don't know if you're aware, I think there's a drain there, but I got a feeling it's not working.
You're right.
Well, yeah, and I'll,
We've been working on that. We found the as-built plans we confirmed that it is actually under the surface outlet, so now we're gonna be working backwards. We had some time last year, and we actually roughed up the park a little bit to drive the frost in the ground. Of course, it never got cold until way after it was too late. But yes, that is a project that we've actually done a little bit of planning for, and we are gonna clean that up.
Any additional questions? Yes? Please. Got 20 minutes.
Years ago on council, they did a water study of the wells and how deep the water was going before they hit water. And we were told that the aquifer under Saline was great. Have you ever heard any information on the aquifer also?
Well, we had a geological study done with the siting of the replacement well, and it had no problems. There was no problems. There was no problem on drawdown. It was still strong and healthy.
Any additional questions, comments? This was a very good discussion. City Manager O'Toole, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up? No? Engineer Humphreys or DPW Director Searles, anything you'd like to add? No? I think both of you left cards at the back table, and I think you have some up front. I think the city manager and I will stick around for a few minutes in the event that you'd like to speak to us privately. If you didn't get any of the handouts, they are on the back table. And of course, please feel free to help yourself to some more refreshments. We have some ice cold water, some coffee, and plenty of donuts. One last opportunity. If there are no questions, I think that's mine, Larry. We will consider this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for coming, and hope you found the information helpful.